Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah, here comes the.
So we got the Philadelphia 76ers at the time of this recording sitting at number 1 in the Eastern Conference at 32-14. And then we got the 3rd seeded Milwaukee Bucks, who also at the time of this recording is 29-17. Now, what would the 8th seed at a putrid 23-24 in the weaker conference in the East at 23-24 yet again, what will they be doing ranked next to some of these top seeds in the Eastern Conference? With that new big three in Miami, and no, I'm not talking about LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. I'm talking about Jimmy Buckets, Bam Adebayo, and Victor Oladipo. So at 23-24, how is the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference in contention in the Eastern Conference? Well, I'm about to address that, but first, what are you waiting for, man? Please show a brother some love. Hit that subscribe button for us. It is free. Don't cost a thing. Don't take much time. And I'm going to sit back and wait for y'all for a little bit.
A few moments later.
Now, if you enjoyed, please leave us a like, drop a comment, and be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Steezy Smith, especially Instagram and TikTok, where we're a lot more active aside from YouTube. And real quick, shout out to all the fans out there. Thank you guys so much for the support. We're almost to 2,000 subscribers in just about a year, and so I can't thank you guys enough. Don't forget to keep on telling a friend to tell a friend to hit that subscribe button. You're tuning in to Steezy Smith, and let's get to cooking. So, the general consensus among NBA observers and NBA analysts alike is that aside from the Brooklyn Nets, the two best teams in the Eastern Conference are the Philadelphia 76ers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, what does a team like the Miami Heat have to do in this discussion? As you all might know, the Heat have made a few splashes leading up to the trade deadline, and not only did they acquire Victor Oladipo from the Houston Rockets for a pretty abysmal package, they also acquired Trevor Ariza and, I'm probably butchering his name, but Nemanja Bjelica from the Sacramento Kings, who is a sharpshooter who essentially replaces Kelly Olynyk. So again, what do all these teams have in common? Their ability to potentially stop the Brooklyn Nets from going to the NBA Finals this coming season. I get it. The Miami Heat are a game under 500, and if the playoffs were to start today, they'd barely be in, hanging on to that 8th seed at 23-24. Well, what business do they have in a conversation like this? Let's explain that record just a little bit. So like I said, right, for the 3rd time, 23-24, they've missed 15 games from Jimmy Butler, who happens to be the best player and who also happens to be having arguably the best all-around season of his career at 22 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. Yes, he's shooting a putrid, I think it's a 20% from 3, but his impact defensively, his ability to create for others, his clutch ability, and his leadership far outweighs his inefficiencies shooting the 3 ball. Well, when you also look at the fact that they're 4-11 without him in the lineup, well, I don't know that many teams that would be successful without their best player. And so with that in perspective, with him in the lineup, the Heat are actually 19-13, which would be good for a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference if Jimmy Butler had actually played all those games. Not to mention Bam Adebayo has missed time, Tyler Hero. The Heat have been one of the most ravaged teams in the NBA this season because of COVID. And yes, now at the right time, everyone is starting to get healthy. They traded away Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley in a first-round swap for a top 10 shooting guard in all the NBA and Victor Oladipo. And yes, he's struggling in terms of efficiency. He's barely shooting 40% from the floor, but he could be the 3rd star that Miami desperately needs to potentially go back to the NBA Finals this season. Now let's revisit the Philadelphia 76ers. The Miami Heat are 0-2 against the Sixers this season, and so how are the Heat exactly better than the Sixers? I get it. The Sixers have a rejuvenated Joel Embiid, who, if not for an injury, would probably be the leader in most MVP leaderboards today. Ben Simmons is playing like the defensive player of the year. They have a basketball savant and head coach Doc Rivers, who seems to have gotten his team on track to the point where coach Brett Brown just wasn't able to these last couple of years because of their inability at the trade deadline. I don't know if Philadelphia stacks up against the new look Miami Heat. Yes, they have a lot more shooting this season. Yes, they have an MVP in Joel Embiid, but is this team that much better? Yes, they added George Hill at the trade deadline, but every year in the playoffs, it seems like he shrinks and doesn't perform to the best of his ability. So I don't know if Philly's actually a better team than Brooklyn or even the Miami Heat for that matter. And then you got the Milwaukee Bucks, who the Miami Heat are 1-1 against, and both those games actually didn't play with Jimmy Butler. When you go back to last season and how the Miami Heat were able to stop or contain Giannis in the playoffs, how do we know that that's not going to happen again this season? They put all the chips on the table for PJ Tucker and Jrue Holiday, and yet they still seem like they're a piece away from truly contending. Yes, they can field a 5-man lineup of Giannis, Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, and Brook Lopez come playoff time, but until Giannis can exercise his playoff demons, his shooting demons, I really don't expect this team to advance past the Miami Heat if they were to play in a series today, unless he's to considerably step up as a shooter, which has left a lot to be desired at this point. Now you look at the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not saying that Miami stands a chance against the Brooklyn Nets, because quite frankly, I don't think they make it past 5 games in a 7-game series, but what I mean by the Heat stand as the biggest threat to the Brooklyn Nets for Eastern Conference supremacy is that what happens if KD doesn't come back at full strength? What happens if he's so injury prone that come playoff time, he's back to being injured all the time? What if he's missing games in and out of the lineup? What if LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin actually are really just a former shell of themselves and really don't provide anything but scoring production, which the Brooklyn Nets really don't need at this point? And what they really need is defense. And yes, they might be able to score enough points to where they won't need defense, but let's just say some of those concerns are still alive come playoff time. Well, the Miami Heat, while they aren't knocking off the Brooklyn Nets in a 7-game series, if some of those things are to catch up to the Brooklyn Nets as some people anticipate, then Miami could make a surprise run and actually end up going back to the NBA Finals. Not only do they have a new big 3 in Jimmy Buckets, Bam Adebayo, and Victor Oladipo, they have the deepest team in all the NBA. Like I said earlier, they only have to give up Avery Bradley, who hasn't played in months, and Kelly Olynyk, while he's been a starter, while he's been a fixture in the starting lineup, they pretty much replaced his production with Bielitsa from Sacramento. Another 3-and-D player in Trevor Ariza, and they only have to give up a measly cost of a 2nd-round pick and Myers Leonard, who wasn't playing with the team because of an injury anyway. And so you take the big 3, right? And you also look at the fact that they have Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, 2 of the most lights-out shooters in all the NBA, Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, UD, Precious Achiuwa, Iggy. I forgot to even go into Iggy, who has been a fixture in the NBA Finals all these years. And so this team not only has the star power, they have coaching and Eric Spoelstra, they have depth, they have shooting, they have quite about everything. And even without some of these new additions, they currently sit at 2nd in all the NBA in assist percentage. They're top 7 in defensive rating, and so this team isn't really too far off from contending in the Eastern Conference. And yes, it's yet to be seen whether or not Victor Oladipo can go back to being efficient and can go back to being consistently healthy, but being as that he could at the very least be the 3rd option in a Miami Heat offense that features so many other shooters and other stars in Bam and Jimmy Butler, there really won't be that much pressure on Victor Oladipo. Let's not forget, just a couple years ago with the Indiana Pacers, he was able to guide his team to the playoffs. He was All-NBA 3rd team. He led the league in steals. He made an All-Defensive 1st team, and he was a first-time All-Star. And yes, he's only played in about 80-plus games in the last couple of seasons, but he's looked particularly healthy. He's gaining some of his explosion back. And he was playing for a Houston Rockets team that was one of the worst in all of basketball. He turned down extension with the team earlier this season, and it's just hard to play basketball when you're playing with guys who, no offense to some of the other guys on the Houston Rockets roster, just don't really match up in terms of skill level next to Victor Oladipo. Now, playing for a team like that, he's still averaging a good 21, 5-5. Going to a team like the Miami Heat enables him to be the 3rd option so that he doesn't have too much pressure on his shoulders. He could go back to playing lights out defense, and he could play on and off the ball. But Miami, he desperately feels a need for the Miami Heat. They needed another shot creator. They needed another playmaker, and they get that in the Victor Oladipo, and they didn't have to pay much to get that. And so if the Miami Heat are able to keep Victor Oladipo healthy with the system that they have in place, the culture that they have in place, because the Miami Heat, as we all know, are known for being one of the top teams in the NBA in terms of conditioning. If they're able to ramp up that part of Victor Oladipo and they're able to keep him healthy for this upcoming playoffs, I'd be very, very scared if I was the Brooklyn Nets or any other team in the Eastern Conference for that matter. With that being said, who do you guys think is the biggest threat to the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference for Eastern Conference supremacy? Is it the Miami Heat, or am I tripping? Is it actually the Philadelphia 76ers or the Milwaukee Bucks, or is there a dark horse in the Eastern Conference? Let me know what you guys think, man. Comment down below your thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed. While that ends this video, don't have to stop watching SteezyBandz content right there. There'll be a whole lot of other content on all other platforms of social media, as well as our channel homepage for a plethora of other guest collabs. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.